Hello class, this demo is for ear anatomy. We are in the last leg of the anatomy. So sense organs, ear anatomy. You will find the corresponding structure list on page 84 to 85 of the lab manual. All right, so let's start with this. What you are looking at is a model of the ear. So when we look at the ear, we just see only a smaller component of the ear, what's externally visible. Much of the ear is deeper within our cranium, passing through and within the temporal bone. So let's start with this. The ear is composed of three parts. The three parts are the external ear, the middle ear, and the internal ear. External ear, middle ear, and internal ear. All of this is within the temporal bone, housed within the temporal bone. Let's start with external ear. So external ear, which is divided into three parts: auricle, external auditory canal, and tympanic membrane. So what you see this, the helix shaped part, this is the auricle. Auricle is the elastic cartilage, skin, connective tissue, etc. Okay. What comes next basically is the external auditory canal. Recall that we learned this in the beginning of the semester when you learned about temporal bone, external auditory canal. The beginning of the canal, basically the entryway into the canal, this is what you refer to as external auditory meatus. Meatus is like a fold. External auditory meatus is the beginning of the deeper part of the ear. The only externally visible part is the auricle. Everything else is partly accessible and is deep within the temporal bone. The internal auditory meatus. So basically, we are going through this within the temporal bone. Here, this is a chamber. This is the middle ear. This will be the middle ear. And then all of this is internal ear or inner ear. Internal auditory meatus. Internal auditory meatus is the opening here, end of the ear structures. So external auditory meatus, internal auditory meatus. Within that lies most of the structures of the ear. Let's just kind of correspond this with the temporal bone. So all of this is temporal bone. Basically, this is all temporal bone. So recall, we learned that in temporal bone, this is the external auditory meatus. This is the beginning of the external auditory canal. And here is internal auditory meatus. So the structures of the ear are within this bony fold of the petrous portion of the temporal bone. That's what the petrous portion is for, to house the inner and the middle ear. Okay, so let's go back to this again. External ear is made of three parts: auricle, external auditory canal, and tympanic membrane. So basically at the end of the external auditory canal, so when we clean our ear, oftentimes we take things like like the little sticks, and forget Q-tips. We might take something like a Q-tips and insert when our ear scratches or itches. This is the part that we access typically. This looks long in the model, but it's actually rather short. So this is one reason why you should not just ram the Q-tips within your external auditory canal. At the end of the external auditory canal, this is a bony part which houses what we call the tympanic membrane. The tympanic membrane, this is what it looks like. So what I did, I am extracting this part and we are looking at it here. So this membrane, see that? The translucent part, this is the tympanic membrane. Okay. So going back, this is the external auditory canal. Again, change the color here. External auditory canal. This external auditory canal, we have a special type of wax, or rather sebum, that's produced within here in the auditory canal. That special type of sebum, modified sebum, we call sebum is the oil that's produced on our skin. Here, that sebum is slightly modified to look more like wax than oil. FYI, it's known as cerumen. So this entire external auditory meatus, or not meatus, external auditory canal. If you look at this here, external auditory canal. This is covered with cerumen. Like here, this is covered with that cerumen, which prevents tiny insects like flies, little flies, or bugs, ants, etc. Even if they crawl into the ear, typically they get stuck. They are prohibited from reaching this tympanic membrane. The kind of shape that we have of our auricle, this allows the sound wave to be reflected and transferred this way. So sound wave travels through air. So when sound wave falls on this part of our ear, they are reflected, or rather you can say deflected, in this direction, so that instead of going outward, the sound waves are actually channelized into the external auditory canal. From there, they're going to hit the tympanic membrane. We'll talk about that toward the end. Okay, so from here until here, all of that is external ear, structures of the external ear. Okay, so here, auricle, auditory canal, and tympanic membrane, which is within here. What comes after external ear? So once again, you can see here, this is tympanic membrane. What comes beyond the external ear is middle ear. So all of this is part of middle ear. Middle ear is basically a chamber that contains three tiny bones that we refer to as ear ossicles. Okay. And the entire middle ear is connected to the pharynx, the space within our throat, via eustachian tube. So this is eustachian tube. This is how air from our pharynx, throat, enters the middle ear. Middle ear is not collapsed, it's not vacuum. There is air in it, and that air is entering via the eustachian tube from the pharynx, the space within our throat. So let's focus on this middle ear. What are the different parts of the middle ear? Middle ear, like I said, is basically a chamber. Within the chamber, there are auditory or ear ossicles, tiny bones. These bones are malleus, incus, and stapes, commonly known as the hammer, the anvil, and the stirrup. So what we see here, this one, the very first bone, number 1, that is your malleus. Number 2, the incus, and number 3 is the stapes. So this bone, this is malleus, all of this incus, and this entire bone stapes. Malleus, incus, stapes. Now malleus is connected to the tympanic membrane and to the incus. Incus is connected to the stapes. Stapes is pushing down into the inner ear via a opening. So basically stapes right here, right there. There is an opening there that the stapes is pushing on. And that opening is known as oval window. This oval window, you will see in a second, this oval window is covered by another membrane, which is similar to the tympanic. So you call that secondary tympanic membrane, which is within the oval window. So malleus, incus, stapes. So the way it works, again, I'm going to talk about how sound wave is transferred and what happens as a result as we go through every part. So as we have seen before, sound wave is deflected via the auricle into external auditory canal. From there, the sound wave travels and hits the tympanic membrane. Tympanic membrane starts vibrating, which then vibrates these bones. Tympanic membrane vibrates as a result. Malleus vibrates as a result. Incus vibrates as a result. Stapes vibrates, and the vibration of the stapes is forward and backward. It oscillates. They're called ossicle because they oscillate, they vibrate. The vibration or oscillation of the stapes is front and back, not side to side. And as the stapes vibrates, it pushes on that secondary tympanic membrane. Okay, so I'll pick up in the next part again. Now the inner part. Let's take a look at actually here. You can see the malleus, the incus. So this is the tympanic membrane. That's the malleus. That's the incus. Notice how these two are actually connected. Tympanic membrane with part of malleus, incus. Okay. Now comes the more complex part, the inner ear. All right. So again, we are picking up tympanic membrane. This is part of the malleus. Incus, stapes. So stapes is pushing onto this thin layered bony and membranous part that we call inner ear. Now all of this from here, 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 all of these are inner ear. The inner ear is rather complex looking. It doesn't have, you can't call it rectangular, triangular, circular, rather a very complex, uneven shape. When you have structures like that, complex, we call them labyrinth. So inner ear is also referred to as labyrinth. So as a whole, all of this, we'll call the entire structures to be labyrinth. This labyrinth is actually a double layer structure. So let's extract this and look at it. Notice that how there is a gel-like membranous structure and there is a bony structure. So basically, it's kind of like, those candies that are hard outside and full of chocolate inside. So you got a thin layer of caramel or toffee and you bite down and you got another substance made of softer chocolate inside. Both have the same shape, but you have to go through the harder layer first in order to go to the softer layer. Same thing with this labyrinth. Labyrinth is made of two layers, basically the same shape, one slightly harder, another one softer. So these bony layers, call that osseous labyrinth. And this membranous layer, call that membranous labyrinth. Osseous labyrinth, membranous labyrinth. Okay, so between this membranous labyrinth and osseous labyrinth, like this space here, this is filled with a fluid. That fluid is known as perilymph. So if you are peeling away the osseous layer, there will be small quantity of perilymph. There is a fluid within the membranous labyrinth. These are not empty structures. There's fluid within it. They're more like sacs filled with a fluid. That fluid is known as endolymph. Perilymph, which is between the osseous and the membranous labyrinth. Endolymph, which is within, inside the membranous labyrinth. Okay. Labyrinth, because it's complex, it has three parts. This is just another look. Osseous labyrinth, white. This blue structure is membranous labyrinth. This pink color that they're showing here, this stands for the perilymph. This is to show there is a fluid here. This pink color here, that is perilymph. Okay, so look at that. This is a complex structure. So the entire labyrinth is divided into what we call a vestibular complex and cochlea. So labyrinth, let me change the color here. Labyrinth itself divided into vestibular complex and cochlea. Okay. Which one is vestibular complex? From here to here. Okay. In that vestibular complex, as you can see, there are half circle canals and there are sac-like structures. These sac-like structures together, what I'm highlighting in green, this and this, refer to this as the vestibule. Change this color into something else. Vestibule. And what do we call these structures? Semicircular canals. 3 of them. 1, 2, 3. These are semicircular canals. And of course, each of these is made of an osseous labyrinth, as you can see here on the surface, osseous labyrinth, and membranous labyrinth with perilymph in between. What's present within this? Endolymph. Within this, endolymph. Okay, all right, so let me see if I can clean some of these. The vestibular complex, there are 2 parts to it, saccule and utricle, but I'm not splitting hair on that. Our focus is the sound and the perception of the and transmission of the sound. Vestibule is for balance. So when you hear that inner ear is responsible maintaining a sense of equilibrium, sense of balance, that's what this vestibule is for. That's not what our focus is. So basically, vestibule, semicircular canals, and from here all the way, all of this is going to be cochlea. Cochlea is most complex. Okay, so now we got a nerve, cranial nerve that innervates this part. This cranial nerve, all of it here, call this vestibulocochlear nerve. Vestibulocochlear nerve. This vestibulocochlear nerve is divided into a vestibular branch, cochlear branch, and you can clearly see which one is which. This whole thing is vestibulocochlear nerve. But look at this, it clearly bifurcates into 2 branches. One goes toward here to the canals and to the vestibule. So this branch is the vestibular branch. And this branch, which is clearly going straight into the cochlea, this would be the cochlear branch. If we go back, right here, same thing. This will be vestibulocochlear nerve. I'm abbreviating. This is going to be the cochlear branch. This is going to be the vestibular branch. This opening, let me change the color. Here, this opening, via which the vestibulocochlear nerve enters, this is what we refer to as internal auditory meatus. All right. Basically, I have the same thing. I'm just turning it slightly and we are looking at it. Again, semicircular canals, vestibule, vestibular branch. It's best to write this as a vestibular branch of vestibulocochlear nerve. And right here, what are these? This layer will be osseous labyrinth. This layer is going to be membranous labyrinth. Once again, layer, not the structure. Now that we are moving into different anatomical structures, not just bone and muscle, start paying attention to the question. Sometimes I'll ask for space, other times layer, other times structure, other times area, other times part. Structure is, and I use this only there, only when there is a room for confusion. If there are multiple names possible for one structure, then I'll specify further that is it a space, is it a structure, is it a layer? For example, if I'm saying name these structures, you'll say that these are semicircular canal of the vestibular complex. If I say name this layer, you'll say osseous labyrinth. Okay. So let's look at this openings here. What do we have here? We have these two structures. This is the oval window that we looked at before. This will be the round window. This oval window is where the stapes is going to push. Basically what we looked at before, the stapes is pushing down onto this oval window. This has a membrane, that's the secondary tympanic membrane. So if you go back, look at this window where the stapes is pushing down is same as this oval window. Round window is a smaller structure that also has a membrane. It does not, we typically don't have a name for it, but there is a membrane here too. Nothing is just exposed opening. Okay, so let's look at the cochlea. So this cochlea is basically a 2.5 turn of 3 fluid-filled tracts. Literally, that's what cochlea is. From here to here, what do we have? We have 2.5 turns, what you can see here, 2.5 turn of 3 fluid-filled tracts. Okay. So this is just another view. We are looking at the vestibule, semicircular canal. This pink is the perilymph. You see part of the vestibular branch of the vestibulocochlear nerve. Don't bother about learning the saccule and utricle because we are not focusing on that. This is just to show you again membranous labyrinth, osseous labyrinth, together semicircular canal. Again, this pink, this is filled with perilymph. And these two are separate things, what we just looked at. Vestibulocochlear nerve, cochlea, vestibule. We already went over the semicircular canal. So this is again a look at the cochlea. You can clearly see vestibulocochlear nerve, cochlear branch, vestibular branch, etc. Oval window. So 2.5 turn of 3 fluid-filled pathways. Okay, so let's start with that. Once again, we are looking at the vestibulocochlear nerve here. So make sure you identify the different parts from different angles. Now, notice how there's a section. So we are looking at the cut section right here. Cut section. Let's flip this and look at it. This is what we're looking at. This is the cochlear nerve. These 2.5 turns of fluid-filled sac, think of it like Magic Mountain. You know, I'm sure many of you have visited Magic Mountain or Universal Studios or, Disneyland. They have different types of rides. And oftentimes these mountain rides are 2 side-by-side tracks. You are going up. On your right, you are just beginning to gain speed. And you will see next to you another track that's going down where people are going downhill at fast speed and screaming, ah! Okay, 2 tracks side by side. Here, similarly, we got 2 tracks and we got a third one in the middle of the 2. So just like these tracks have to go around something, in our Magic Mountain ride, the tracks are actually on a mountain. Here, this fluid-filled tracks, these are going around a bony part. That bony part here, this is modulus. Refer to this as modulus. Okay, what are these fluid-filled sacs? Scala vestibuli, scala tympani, and in between, scala media. Scala media. Scala tympani, scala vestibuli, scala media. Scala vestibuli is filled with perilymph. Scala tympani is filled with perilymph. Scala media is filled with endolymph. And these 3 tracks are going around the modulus, the bony part, all of this. Okay, next one, we are focusing on again, modulus, scala vestibuli, scala tympani, scala media. This has endolymph. These 2 have perilymph. Notice that the scala media has a structure within it. This structure is what we refer to as organ of corti. All the elaborate structural arrangements that we have been studying is really to activate this. This is the sensory structure. Notice how it's connected to the sensory nerve. This is basically the sensory part of the vestibulocochlear nerve. So here, this is organ of corti. Now let's basically elaborate this a little further. Oh, let me talk about helicotrema. Helicotrema. So notice again, these tracks, basically scala vestibuli and scala tympani, these 2 tracks at the tip, they're actually joined. See how here they are separated, but here these 2 are joint. This joining part, refer to this as helicotrema. Where do I have that? Helicotrema, right there. Helicotrema. Helicotrema. Okay. I'll go for the technology, technology, so to speak. How the process of sensation happens, for how do we perceive and process sound wave. So this is a section of this part. Again, what we're looking at is a magnified view. So once again, scala vestibuli, scala tympani, scala media. This is the organ of corti. Okay. Further, notice that the scala media is basically separated from the vestibuli and tympani via membranes. Okay. This membrane between the scala media and scala vestibuli, call that tectorial membrane. So this membrane here, tectorial membrane, this membrane. The membrane, which is basically the lining, the inner lining of the scala tympani, call that basilar membrane. And it's not just limited to where the organ of corti is, it's actually the entire inner lining. Tectorial membrane, basilar membrane. What do you call vestibular membrane then? Or the lining of the vestibule, right there. And use a different color, use I guess yellow. This membrane, this lining. This is the vestibular membrane. Sorry, I made a mistake. Sorry about that. Vestibular membrane. Basilar membrane, tectorial membrane. What was I thinking? Tectorial membrane. Vestibular membrane, which continues on with the lining here. Basilar membrane, tectorial membrane. Tectorial membrane is basically part of the organ of corti. So the organ of corti is made of tectorial membrane and modified hair cells. These are basically hair cells. That's what they are, modified hair cells. So if we enlarge that and we are looking at the organ of corti, you can see how these are modified here. So tectorial membrane, hair cells, vestibular membrane, basilar membrane, vestibular membrane continues on, and tectorial membrane and hair cells, all of these together, this is what you refer to as organ of corti. So same thing here. even further magnified. Scala vestibuli, scala tympani, this has perilymph, this has perilymph, scala media with endolymph. Within the scala media lies the entire structure is organ of corti. This will be the vestibular membrane. This will be the basilar membrane. And we have pictorial membrane, hair cells. Let's back up and now see how this sound wave, how is this perceived? Basically, I'm going to start right from here. Okay. So basically, again, sound wave is perceived. It's a whole process, including all parts of the ear. So I'm just going to use one single color to show you the progression of the sound perception. Okay. So we are starting with let me see, which color would I use? Light blue. So sound wave travels via air. It basically compression and expansion of the air. So when sound wave hits the auricle, that upper bent corner, especially all throughout the human ear, is very much bent because we lost the ability to turn our ears. If you look at dogs and cats, they turn their ears in different directions. We lost that ability. So instead, we have evolved with this helical shape, which is bent in the corner right there. It's bent. It's kind of folded. And that's what allows sound wave when it hits this auricle, any part of the auricle, the only possible destination is to be deflected here. Can't escape. This bent, folded rim basically stops the sound wave from reflecting back. It's only one way, into the external auditory canal. So the sound wave travels into the external auditory canal, hits the tympanic membrane. Tympanic membrane vibrates, oscillates. When tympanic membrane vibrates, Marius vibrates, which in turn vibrates the incus, which in turn vibrates the stapes. And as we saw before, when stapes vibrates, stapes basically goes back and forth. So vibration of the stapes is not left and right or side to side, but it's a vibration that's forward and backward, front and back. So the vibration of the stapes is going to be front and back. It keeps pushing on that secondary tympanic membrane. When secondary tympanic membrane is being pushed like that, what is it going to hit on? Secondary tympanic membrane basically is going to hit on the scala tympani. Sorry, no, scala vestibuli. Right here, scala vestibuli. I'm looking for what I had here. Anyway, scala vestibuli. So tympanic membrane vibrates, causes the vibration of the ear ossicles. As a result, stapes vibrates. When stapes vibrates, it vibrates the secondary tympanic membrane through the oval window. On the other side of the oval window, we have scala vestibuli. I should have one diagram of that. Oh, right there, yes. You can see that. Scala vestibule. So that's the stapes. Here is the secondary tympanic membrane. And that's the oval window. So this starts vibrating. On the other side of this is the scala vestibule. Here they're only showing the cochlear duct is the same thing as scala media. Call it scala media or cochlear duct. Basically, scala vestibule vibrates. The vibration of the scala vestibule basically starts moving the perilymph. The perilymph is sloshing. It sloshes and the sound wave goes up through the scala vestibule. And then here at helicotrema, where the vestibule and tympani are joined, basically the vibration, the movement, the sloshing is transferred to scala tympani. Now the scala tympani, I'm using a different color. The scala tympani, that vibration is downward. This is what I was saying, like you are going up on a magic mountain ride and you see people moving down, screaming and yelling. So the vibration is now going to move through the scala tympani. And so basically the perilymph moves, sloshes back and forth and eventually hits the round window. The round window has a small membrane here. So that membrane basically bulges into the middle ear and retracts. This vibration of the scala vestibule, perilymph, and the perilymph of the scala tympani, eventually what it does, it causes the scala media or the cochlear duct. The endolymph of the scala media starts vibrating, this light blue color right here, what I'm tracing with pink. When the scala media, which has endolymph, when that starts vibrating throughout the scala media, what's present? Organ of the corti. So scala media vibrates. Let's go back to this here. Scala media vibrates, endolymph vibrates, so does the organ of corti. When the organ of corti vibrates, basically the endolymph is vibrating here. The tectorial membrane starts pushing forward and backward on the hair cells. These hair cells are excited, and they're excited to a point where an action potential is reached. Recall we talked about graded and action potential. When an action potential is reached, that action potential is going to travel via the cochlear nerve. It's going to travel out. As you can see here, going to travel out, sensory nerve, via the cochlear nerve. Cochlear nerve will take it to the brain. Remember the auditory area or auditory cortex, which is the inner part of the temporal bone, facing the part of the brain that's directly interior to the temporal bone. It's the auditory cortex. Basically, this vestibulocochlear nerve takes the action potential into the auditory cortex. When auditory cortex processes that information and tells you what it is, that's when we actually perceive the sound. So many things happen between, let's say I clap and you hear it. But between the end of my clap and you hearing the sound of the clap, everything that I discussed so far has already happened. The sound wave has passed. Amazing, isn't it? The sound wave has passed through the external auditory canal. The sound wave has passed from here into here, vibration of the ear ossicles, vibration of the stapes, back and forth, Stapes moves, vibrates back and forth, it pushes on the secondary tympanic membrane. On the other side of the secondary tympanic membrane lies the scala vestibuli. Oh, here is one. Scala vestibuli, this is what I was looking for. So here on the other side of the tympanic membrane, secondary tympanic membrane, lies the scala vestibuli. So scala vestibuli starts within the perilymph, starts vibrating. That vibration goes up. And then at helicotrema, that vibration is transferred into the perilymph of scala tympani. Now it goes down. And the perilymph keeps sloshing back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and hits the round window. And so the membrane of the round window, here it's calling the secondary tympanic membrane, but secondary tympanic membrane is really here. This is just called, someone call it accessory tympanic membrane, or just call it a membrane. Basically, this membrane bulges and retracts. Kind of like you blow air into the balloon and you stop, the balloon deflates, it's like that. But with all of this vibration of the perilymph, the scala media's endolymph starts vibrating. And so the endolymph of the scala media starts vibrating, tectorial membrane starts vibrating, which rubs on the hair cells. Hair cells are excited. Hair cells produce an action potential. This action potential, amazing, like I said, I keep saying amazing. This action potential is taken or transferred, carried by the vestibulocochlear nerve via first the cochlear branch, then to the vestibulocochlear nerve, which reaches the auditory cortex. Then our auditory cortex, based on previous experiences of everything else it has heard before, it matches it with what I have heard before and tells you that this is a sound of the clap. Not only that, it would tell you this is a loud clap, this is a faint clap, it's echoing, it's not echoing, all of that. So between this and you hearing, all of this has happened. Beauty of the nervous system. That is the end of the demo of the ear.